All right, good morning, everybody. It's 11:30. We'll go ahead and get started with the pre-commission agenda. I don't have anything for a president's report today. Are there any general housekeeping or discussion items on the agenda?
Madam President?
Commissioner Pickering?
Yeah, I just want to give a shout out to our comms team and our maintenance crew. I called in and our camera folks. There was a signal issue with veterans and Curtis for ongoing multiple day thing, and I got to use the new C-Click Fix ACHD Connect app, and it was so easy. So just want to flag that was a really good experience. A lot, I think, smoother than even our last setup. So excited to see that come on and be a little bit more public when we're ready for that. But good job, team, all around, and we got it fixed.
Anything else? All right, seeing none, I'm going to hand it over to Shandy for the director's report.
Thank you, Madam President, Commissioners. Happy to be here. All right. So we talked about having a project meeting in Northwest Meridian and Northeast Canyon County to discuss all of the happenings related to the Highway 16 project. Because other jurisdictions were unable to take that on, we were happy to do so. And in true communications fashion, we took it above where we were originally planning. So we would like to invite all of you to a Cone Zone Collective, which will be a very fun event for all ages, where we will have our partner agencies, City of Meridian, City of Nampa, ITD, ourselves, and then other partners as well, to help the community understand not only what's happening right now and how it's all connected, who's doing what, when, and why, but what future projects are happening in those areas. So that is a huge area for growth in our county and in Canyon County as well. And there's a lot planned out there. So we are attracting people with fun and keeping them there for education. So we will have 2 presentations on the evening of Tuesday, July 1st, one at 4:30 and one at 6:30, where each of the jurisdictions will present on their projects, the timelines, and hopefully relate to everyone how they're all connected and why we're doing them in the order that we're doing them. We'll have a touch a truck zone there. So we'll have several members of ACHD's team. Meridian, one of their biggest projects is a wastewater lift station. So they'll have some wastewater equipment there as well, and some other educational activities to help educate the public in a fun way. And then we'll have food trucks there to attract people for dinner, and it should just be a really fun event. So we are inviting all of you to be there. This will be held at Mint Barrel Barn, who has been really significantly impacted by all of the construction that's out there. And when we reached out to them, asking them what they might charge us to have the event, they were so gracious. They actually donated the property for us for this event, which is kind of why then it took on a life of its own, because it's such a beautiful space out there that we couldn't just have a regular old meeting. We had to make it something big. So we really appreciate them for donating that space. And they're just so amazing to work with. So we look forward to having all of you there that would like to join us. And we will start all of that marketing today after one final call with a vendor. So we will get all of that out there. You'll start seeing it. Next up, we just want to congratulate Meg McCarthy, who was accepted into the Leadership Boise program. So she will get started on that this year. We were called out. So this is a build safe and build together. So interagency response. So we were called out to Warm Springs for a minor mudslide when an irrigation line was leaking. So Boise Fire Department was out there initially, and we got called out. So our teams went out after hours and mitigated and got the road taken care of and back open. So just wanted to report that to you. Some exciting news. So on Percy, at the May retirement board meeting, actuaries presented an overview of scheduled contribution rates, which you can see right here what was scheduled, what we planned for and budgeted for. And while we had originally budgeted for the planned increases to the contribution rate in 2026 and 2027, plans have changed. And the 2.5% increase that you see here, which was supposed to take effect in July of 2026, is now delayed to July of 2027. And the 3.75% increase in July of 2027 is now delayed until 2028 and reduced to 1.25% for contributions. So this is excellent news for us. And we can only assume that this means that the fund is doing well. And this also saves us money. So in FY26, this will save us about $125,000. In FY27, this will save us about $375,000. And more importantly, it'll also save for our team members as well. Exciting news for Eagle, Aikens Road is now open. So we're very excited to report that. Still a lot of construction in that area. I will say while we're on the Eagle topic, there have been a lot of reports of people moving signage. So we worked with media. Rachel pitched to media yesterday, and we had an interview out there with our construction team to remind the community. It was supposed to air last night. I'm not sure if it ended up airing last night or if it'll air today, but just reminding the public that they need to not move signs and that it is a safety issue. And then you'll see more information from our team coming out on that as well. So chip seal progress update. We are at 75.69 lane miles as of this morning. That would not have increased today as you have seen the weather outside. So they are on hold today for chip seal, watching the weather, but with the rain and lightning not getting much done as far as chip seal. So they are diverting operations other places. It's not hot out today, but it has been hot out. I just want to assure all of you that the team is taking the heat very seriously, doing regular check-ins and making sure that everybody stays safe out there. And then for the next one, I just want to introduce you to kind of an unsung hero, as well as the rest of the mechanics that really keep this operation running smoothly. So just below the hard hat for you.
This is Dale. He's the best. He's the best guy we got.
I'm Dale Ranger. I'm a mechanic here at the Cloverdale site. I've been here probably a year and a half, 2 years, somewhere in there. I worked at the mines for years, and it was a 4-hour commute and then another 2.5 to work. And I was gone probably every other week. I drove by here all the time. And one day I thought, you know, why not? I'll see how they go about hiring. And when I walked in and was asking about it, they said go online. Then they asked me, well, what do you do? And I says, heavy equipment mechanic. And they said, really, we're interviewing for that job. They asked if I would interview. And so I hung around for another hour or so, interviewed, and they called me up and offered me a job. Normal day, you come in, we do a morning meeting. The operations guys, they'll come in. We'll do all the quick fixes that they need done in the morning. And then after you get them done, it settles down so then you can start your scheduled jobs. They try to keep you busy, keep you going, which isn't hard because there's a lot of broken stuff. My day-to-day workload, it changes because sometimes you go out in the field. Like on chip sealing, they like a mechanic there because breakdowns, they don't have the time to wait to have it fixed. So they'd like you to be there, hands-on, ready to go. What I love about this job is I get to work on an assortment of equipment, not just a couple different. Here, you get a variety. You get anything from a weed eater all the way to an excavator. So we pretty much do it all here. That and my drive time, cut it way, way, way down. And then I get to spend a lot more time with family. And the group of guys and gals that I work with, you can't beat them. The challenges of the job is trying to work on things that you've never actually done and troubleshooting. That's be the hardest part of it. But once you figure it out, it works out pretty good. Work-wise, there's always an advancement. One thing is you just put in a good day's work and do your best, and they seem to recognize it, so it works for me. Outside of work, spend time with the family, grandkids, that and fishing, love fishing. Trying to get boat working. I have a bunch of projects at home I work on. I enjoy where I work, but I mean, if I didn't, I guess I wouldn't be here.
We definitely enjoy having Dale as well, and all of the other mechanics. So just a shout out to all of them because they're oftentimes behind the scenes, but really keep everything moving, and we really appreciate them. So a lot coming up, Commission. So the Shoshone Paiute blessing ceremony is, I think that's tomorrow. Is that tomorrow? The 12th, tomorrow. West End Neighborhood Association meeting. Aaron will be there. I think Commissioner Gold is also attending that one on the 17th. We have 2 events on the 17th and the 24th for walk, bike, ride at Catalpa Park. And on the 26th, we have a TOC tour with local mayors. Not all mayors are able to attend, but we have gotten yes RSVPs from Mayor Chadwick, Mayor Pike, and Mayor Steer that plan to be there. And then we have our May in Motion Awards Luncheon at Jump at 11:30. On the 1st, there's another walk, bike, ride event at Catalpa Park, and we have that Cone Zone Collective that you're all invited to. You're also invited on the 2nd to ACHD Fun Day, which is a family fun event for ACHD team members, where we join together in Kleiner Park for a barbecue to just show a little appreciation to the team. And then on the 24th, that's a ways ahead, but want you to mark your calendars. We do have Neighborhoods in the Know. Last year, we combined that with our budget presentation and open house, which worked out splendidly. So we are doing that again. Those will be combined again this year. And that's it for me. Do you guys have any questions for me?
Thanks for the report, Shandy. Could you maybe send that slide with all the upcoming events to the commission?
Absolutely. I actually have probably a better way to do that. So we will get that sent your way.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thanks.
All right, with that, we will be at ease until noon. All right, welcome everybody. It's now 12 o'clock. I will call the meeting to order. Thanks for joining us in person and online, and please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, the first item is to adopt the agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. Next up is the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a commissioner or citizen so requests, in which case the item will be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda. All consent agenda items are commission action items unless noted. I don't think we have any requests to move any items, so is there a motion?
Madam President, I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. That moves us to the regular agenda. We have one item. It is the auction surplus disposal request for approval. Welcome, Joe.
Good afternoon, Madam President, Commissioners. We are here to talk about authorization of underperforming units at the auction. But before we get to the ask, I'll run through a quick summary of how the auction went. So on May 7th, we came to Commission approving the surplus property. In that, we declared that the items were no longer useful to the district. Through that, obviously we are always looking at how do we repurpose, reuse items. We have a few scenarios where that did work out, and we have scenarios where it just needs to be surplused. So for the auction, we had strong performance across the fleet sales. So total units on the fleet side, 23, average return on the investment, 158%. So we did very well. Some of the high performers, like any auction, some take you by surprise, others are disappointing. But overall, we did very, very well on it. We had a couple outliers that we're here to talk about and request approval on. While most units exceeded or met the salvage estimates that we had provided, a few missed. So we have two 2009 Volvo dump trucks. The estimate was $30,000. One has a bid for $20,400, another one for $26,200. These are identical trucks. And then we have a 2011 Ford F-150. Estimate was $2,500. Its auction price right now is $2,450. So in conclusion, while things performed very well, there is always variability in an auction. I believe that these are all within the acceptable risk windows. The furniture side, definitely some challenges there, as we've seen in previous auctions. A few of those in trying to determine why we see less demand there. A few things pop up. Furniture has low resale value for surplus side, high availability. So there are a lot of available new and used furniture out there. Public auction buyers focus on the high value resale friendly items. And then a lot of times in the bulk and the size of these that they have transportation and storage challenges as they work through that. So a few items that came out in discussion about, where we're at with the furniture side of things. So overall, the recommendation would be to approve and accept the auction bids received that were below market and approve of the disposal of the surplus personal property that received no bids in accordance with ACHD policy 2033. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Any questions?
Madam President,
Commissioner McKinney.
Joe, looking at the big picture, what's the total value of items that were put up for auction? What was the total returns as far as what the bids were?
Yeah,
Can you give me a total
Madam
number?
President, Commissioner McKinney, I believe it was $304,000 that we had estimated for the entire auction process. Right now, I don't have all the final numbers, but we're sitting somewhere around 375,000. So definite positive return based on what we had estimated.
Okay, so that includes the give and take for the items that are below versus compared to all the others that are
It
above.
is.
Okay. Is that inclusive of also the furniture items? Because they,
Yep, that's including the entire
so
surplus.
even with the furniture items that tend to go below estimated values, et cetera, or did some of them just not receive bids at all?
Correct.
Okay, all right. Great, thank you.
All right, thanks for the information, Joe. Commissioners, is there a motion on this?
Madam Chair, I'll move to approve the auction surplus disposal as presented.
Second.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Great. That moves us to discussion items. Is there anybody in person or online who wish to address the commission? All right, with that, meeting is adjourned. We'll move into the post-commission agenda. We've got a few work sessions up today. First up is the Pedestrian Advisory Group update with Joe Jaszewski, Chair, and presentation by staff. So I don't know if it's Meg or Joe that's coming up, but okay. Welcome, Meg.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Meg McCarthy. I'm the ECHD Bicyclist and Pedestrian Program Coordinator. And part of my position here is being the staff liaison to the Bike Advisory Committee and the Pedestrian Advisory Group. And we had a request from the Commission to have our advisory committees provide an update to you on an annual basis. So that's what this is. And Joe, you're familiar with him. He's been our chair for 3 years. Yeah. And Mary Beth is 2 years. Yeah. So I'll let them take it away. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Meg. Welcome, Joe.
Thanks, Meg. President Gold and Commissioners, it's a pleasure to be here this afternoon. I have a brief update for you on the Pedestrian Advisory Group, of which I'm the chair, and my name is Joe Jaszewski. So first slide, please. Oh, even better. Great. So this is our roster of the Pedestrian Advisory Group. Only one new member since I was up here last time, and that's Jerry Breakbill from Eagle. Jerry's actually a retired law enforcement officer who focused on traffic enforcement. So having his perspective has been something that we haven't had before, and is really useful, and has been interesting to kind of get that perspective of what's going on out there. So that's our group. I've been a member of the group since 2019, and as Meg said, this is my 3rd year as chair. So if you recall last year, we asked the commission to adopt the AASHTO standard of 600 feet between enhanced crossings on arterial roads. And so the group wants to extend their thanks to the commission and to the district for the effort to install more enhanced crossings on arterials. So we just want to say thank you for that. The 600-foot standard wasn't adopted, but we do know that there has been more enhanced crossings have been installed. So just wanted to express our appreciation there. The next thing I wanted to talk about is the 15th and 16th Street corridor. This is a walk that all advisory groups went on in April. The ADA committee wrote an excellent letter of recommendation. We liked it so much that we just signed our name to that letter. We thought that they did a great job with those recommendations, and we fully endorse the items that they discussed there. We wanted to make, and actually just want to point out on this photo here, it really sort of shows the various uses that are happening there. You've got pedestrians, you have a food truck in the background there, people on bikes, scooters, cars. I think that really encapsulates what's happening there on that corridor, all sorts of uses and different modes. Oops. I wanted to go one step further. It's in the ADA letter and request, the group would like to request that 15th and 16th be made two-way streets. From a pedestrian perspective, we think that that's really important for a couple of reasons. One of which is one-way streets are especially hazardous to pedestrians because drivers turning left onto a one-way street are only looking in to their right in the direction of oncoming traffic. So if you're here and turning on to a one-way street towards the left here, you're going to be looking for cars that way. But if you're a pedestrian on this side, you're not, as a driver, you're probably not going to see them. That's why we think having a two-way street is really important for pedestrians because it really enhances the visibility no matter which direction you're walking. The other reason that we wanted to cite for making 15th and 16th two ways is that one-way streets tend to encourage speeding because they're designed like a freeway and without the visual friction of oncoming traffic. So when there's a street just going in one direction, it tends to enhance speeding because the drivers only have to worry about that one direction. We also understand that the city of Boise supports the recommendation of making these streets two ways, and just wanted to point out the conversion of 11th Street in downtown Boise from a southbound one way to going both ways has enhanced that street for all users. It's slowed down the traffic a bit, and then there's bike lanes and better pedestrian access there too. So the PAG would like to enthusiastically support a conversion of 15th and 16th and any other streets really downtown into the two-way format for the same reasons that we think it would be good for 15th and 16th. So with that, I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Any questions?
Commissioner
Pickering?
Just want to say thank you for your leadership and your work in presenting to us. I think we've got 15th and 16th has been on top of mind for I think most of us on the commission. So really appreciated you signing on to that letter and giving us a little bit more insight as to why it's a critical corridor that we should evaluate.
Thanks, Commissioner.
Yeah, thanks. Did you? Yeah, Commissioner
Yeah,
Nelson?
one thing, I took lots of notes, Joe.
Great.
And I was on that walk, bike, roll day in, I guess it was April. And I just want to say the timing of this update's good before we get into the 5-year plan and the CIP, so I appreciate that. But I want to, as someone who probably almost got killed in London my first hour there by not looking the right way, I am interested in crash history, especially head bike crash history on one ways. And maybe I'll talk to staff offline to see what kind of research has there been on that, and then what's our local experience specific to those roadways. And with 11th, what's the kind of post-project evaluation of that? Most agencies don't have enough time to do the post-project. They're so up to their eyeballs with current work, but I am really kind of curious on that. So I'm going to be just letting you know, I'm going to follow up on some of that stuff.
Yeah. President Gold, Commissioner Nelson, yeah, I think that 11th Street really presents a great case study in terms of sort of a post-project assessment of how things are going. From a user perspective, I'm on 11th Street almost every day of the week because I work on 13th. It seems to be really improved. The traffic is slower. There's a lot more bikes out there on 11th. And the pedestrian access has gotten better, and the experience has gotten better just because the traffic has slowed down a little bit. So I agree. I think that that'd be really interesting to see sort of the data from that street after that conversion. And also just want to thank you for coming along to the walk in April. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. I was sorry to miss the walk. I really wanted to be on that with you all and listen to your feedback, and appreciate, your efforts signing onto the letter, and just all of your volunteer work on the advisory committee and your leadership on there as well. And appreciate you coming and giving the update to the commission too.
Thank you, President Gold. There'll be plenty more opportunities to get out there. So thanks.
Thank you. All right, next up is the Bicycle Advisory Committee update with Mary Beth Nutting. Welcome, Mary Beth.
Thank you. Mary Beth Nutting, 5390 North Wall Avenue, Boise, 83703. Madam President and members of the Commission, I am the Chair of the Bicycle Advisory Committee. I would like to thank you for this opportunity to share what the BAC has been working on over the past year. Before I begin, though, I would like to recognize and thank ACHD staff for their support of the Bicycle Advisory Committee. Thank you to Meg McCarthy, the Bicyclist and Pedestrian Program Coordinator, and Dave Rader, the former Supervisor of Accessibility and Mobility, for their guidance and knowledge in working with the BAC. We look forward to working with the new Supervisor of Accessibility and Mobility, Cody Holman. Thank you to other ACHD staff members for presenting projects and valuable information to the committee, for answering all of our questions, and for collecting our feedback on projects and policies. Commissioners, you have an exceptional team here at ACHD, but I'm sure I don't need to tell you that, but we're grateful for them. This past April, the BAC celebrated 20 years as an advisory committee to the Commission in the Ada County Highway District. In resolution number 736, it was stated that the Bicycle Advisory Committee was created for the specific purpose of providing assistance to ACHD and its bicycle program. John Yarnell, one of our BAC members, did a rough estimate on the number of volunteer hours over the last 20 years. That estimate was 3,600 hours of BAC volunteer hours. And that estimate was only for the monthly meetings. That number does not include meeting prep, time spent reading and learning about standards and updates to street design, our bicycle rides and walk audits, and subcommittee meetings. There are 13 members on the BAC with representation throughout the county. The members represent a wide range of people who ride bicycles. Our longest serving member of the BAC, Wava Kaufman, shared that when she joined the committee, she was essentially voluntold that she was going to be on the committee. And thank goodness, because Wava has done a phenomenal job in representing the city of Kuna on the BAC. This past year, Wava was awarded the Compass Leadership in Motion Volunteer Award for the advocacy that she has done on behalf of pedestrians and bicyclists in the Kuna area. This past year, we had one opening on the BAC. We had 30 very qualified people apply to fill that one vacancy. The Bicycle Advisory Committee of the Ada County Highway District has become a committee where people want that opportunity to serve on behalf of people bicycling in Ada County. This past year, the Bicycle Advisory Committee has bicycled as a group on 2 rides. One was a central bench ride where we experienced a variety of recently completed projects and gave feedback on upcoming projects in the area. The other BAC bicycle ride was on McMillan Road in the area of Skyline Park on Mitchell to Lowell Scott Middle School, an area where a lot of families bicycle to school and the park. The BAC will be doing another bicycle ride in October in an area yet to be determined. We have discussed several items, but we welcome any suggestions that you all might have. Please email me if you have any areas in your district that you would like us to plan a ride. We had 3 commissioners join us on our central bench ride last year. Thank you for that. And we would like to invite the commission again to our October ride. The Bicycle Advisory Committee joined the other advisory committees for 2 street audits. The first was on Pierce Park from Lucky Lane to Hill Road, and the most recent audit was on 15th and 16th Street from Shoreline to Fort Street. Both of these presented the opportunity to hear feedback and suggestions from other advisory committees and to get a boots on the ground perspective on both of these projects. We have received presentations from staff at ACHD in the city of Boise on specific topics, information on the newly formed safety team at ACHD, updates on the city of Boise fatality task review, information on chip seal treatments, and there's a lot of details to that. It was fascinating, believe it or not. Specific project updates throughout the county, a presentation on the livable street performance measure changes, and an update on the ACHD speed management policy. These crucial presentations keep us updated on actions as they relate to bicycling in the county. This past year, we have added 2 regular agenda items to our monthly BAC meetings. The first is a BAC member presentation of commission meeting updates. Each month, a member listens to the commission meetings for that month and reports back to our members all the information that relates to what we do on the Bicycle Advisory Committee. It has been a great way for members to better understand what the commission does and to hear about all the things that the district is doing in designing and building safe places for people to bicycle. The other regular agenda item is Eyes on the Street. This agenda item is held at the end of the meeting, and it is an opportunity for members to share what they are seeing and experiencing while bicycling in the county. We then discuss the options or solutions that are available to us in addressing these concerns. Since last presenting an update to the Commission, we have written 2 letters to the United States Secretary of Transportation. One letter was for a RAISE implementation grant, and the other letter of support was for a Safe Streets for All implementation grant, both in Ada County. Also, we have written several letters to the Commission this year. We wrote a letter of support for the speed policy updates. We provided the BAC's 5-year work plan priorities in a letter to the Commission. This letter was written by our BAC Vice Chair, Nina Schaefer, who has served on the 5-year work plan subcommittee for several years and does a great job in compiling our project priorities. Our most recent letter to the Commission was a letter of support with recommendations on the 15th and 16th Street from Shoreline to Fort Street project. The All Advisory Committee walk provided the BAC with a lot of feedback for the project. In addition to this walk, the BAC had a robust discussion at our monthly meeting that provided additional feedback. Brian Keene, our BAC secretary, did a phenomenal job in compiling all this information and wrote a letter to the Commission on behalf of the BAC. And I'm going to stop there and I'm going to add that thank you to Joe for sharing that information about their request. The BAC also started out our letter referring to the city of Boise's priority for that previous year on prioritizing 15th and 16th Street into a 2-way conversion. So I just want to throw that in there. Please know that when we write these letters, the members of your Bicycle Advisory Committee spend a lot of time and energy and put a lot of thought into these letters. We recently started two new subcommittees. The first is a Historic Bikeway Subcommittee. This subcommittee has been working on listing streets that are part of recreational bikeways on a spreadsheet that the BAC can refer to when we discuss projects or 5-year work plan priorities. Ada County has a notoriously long legacy of being a place where people bicycle, whether it is recreational bicycling or commuting by bicycle, and it is important to preserve that legacy. The second new subcommittee is the Bicycle Friendly Community Subcommittee. The Bicycle Friendly Community Award is presented every 4 years by the nationwide League of American Bicyclists. The league was founded in 1880 to advocate for people riding bicycles. This award has 4 levels that can be awarded to cities based on the progress that these communities have made to support and create safe conditions for people to bicycle. The first time that ACHD earned the Bicycle Friendly Community Award, and this is an award that they have to apply for, it's very extensive. They received it in 2004, and they received the bronze level, which is nice, much better than a participation trophy, so that was a good start. In 2012, ACHD achieved the next highest level, the silver. This year, and this is very important, ACHD was awarded the Bicycle Friendly Community Gold level for all the work that the district has been doing to support, design, and build safe places for people to bicycle. Only 460 communities in the United States were awarded the various levels of award. Applying does not mean you get an award. Only 32 were awarded the gold this past year, and 5 were awarded the platinum. The 2024 Bicycle Friendly Community Report Card for ACHD is included in your agenda packet. In the response to ACHD's Bicycle Friendly Community application, the League of American Bicyclists included feedback on how we can improve, along with all of the Ada County public comments from the Bicycle Friendly Community Survey. And there's about 25 pages of comments. Some of them are very, very specific. Some of them are just kind of a general comment. Our subcommittee will dive into the feedback and comments, and based on that information, we'll work on creating back goals for the next 4 years. It is our hope to earn the highest level, the platinum, in the next decade. We recognize that it took 20 years to achieve the gold level and that it will take time to earn the platinum. Earning the gold level for the League of American Bicyclists Bicycle Friendly Community Award is an enormous achievement. It is a tribute to the steadfast work of many people and to the collaborative effort of the Commission, District, Bicycle Advisory Committee, and the community. And with that, that was a lot, wasn't it? And with that, we would like to invite the Commission to attend our virtual monthly back meetings. The meetings are held on the first Monday of the month at 5 p.m. The Bicycle Advisory Committee thanks the Commission for the opportunity to serve the Commission, the district, and the residents of Ada County. Thank you, and I will stand for any questions that you might have, although I can't imagine there would be many based on all the information that you just got. Every
Thank you,
detail.
Mary Beth. Commissioner Nielsen.
Yeah, that was great, Mary Beth. Appreciate the update. Now, I happened to, I think it was in the paper, and had the opportunity to, at my Rotary meeting, listen to Mayor McLean talk about enhanced traffic enforcement at the city of Boise, which is mostly in my district. So keen to that. And I'm curious, it might be, looking forward, it might be good to maybe have Chief Dennison speak to your committees about that effort. And I'm curious what type of violations they're finding or citing people for, because getting people to slow down and pay attention and not be distracted makes it safer for everybody walking and biking. So that's been kind of front and center since I heard that yesterday. And that might have made, listening to you both, maybe think that might be a good agenda item for your committees in the future. So
President Gold, Commissioner Nielsen, I love that idea. That is genius. Thank you. We're going to do that. Thank you.
Commissioner Pickering.
Thanks, Madam President. Mary Beth, thank you so much for your time and leadership and commitment and dedication to this work and helping ACHD be better. I know how much time and effort you put in, all of you put in. When you put in when you create those letters, when you're convening those meetings, getting to consensus, I know it's not easy and it's slow at times, but I'm just really grateful for your presentation and also highlighting the gold award. So I think we didn't really talk about it much. We kind of just accepted it. We're like, woo, and then kind of moved on to keep, building things, right, and doing the work. But I've been thinking a lot about that and just how big of a deal that's been as an exclamation point on the investments and kind of shifting, right? Not just philosophically, but structurally in projects, right? Making sure that we are prioritizing safety for all modes. And so I think that that's one example of how we've made that shift and it's come to fruition physically. So I just really appreciate your work, because so much of your leadership and the advisory committee's work has helped make that possible.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Mary Beth, for
Great.
the really great overview and update. Really appreciate your leadership and time, and all of the members of the advisory committee as well. And I want to thank you for your coordination with the other advisory committees too, because I think it's really helpful when everybody's together and you get lots of different perspectives on those various walks or rides or so. And you also coordinated to get this update. So just really appreciate all your effort and the annual update from you. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And I consider it to be a privilege and honor to be the chair of this committee. So I thank you for that opportunity. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary Beth. All right, our next work session is with VRT, Valley Regional Transit FY 2026 funding request. Welcome, Tom Laws.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the commission. And I think I would just like to echo your comments. It's so great working with Joe, Mary Beth, and all the advisory committees. We are really lucky to have them. But shifting gears a little bit to Valley Regional Transit, for the record, Tom Law is planning manager with the Ada County Highway District, and I'll turn over the remaining time to VRT, but this is just part of the standard procedure. Each year, Valley Regional Transit will come to us with their annual funding requests. This year's request is broken up into two different sections. One is the general assessment, and then the second is a special assessment for ACHD's Employee Pass program. It's a really great incentive that the district offers where all employees get a free bus pass. With that, this is a work session information item. There's no action needed, but what we will be looking for are some general head nods. If the commission supports this, we'll go back, incorporate it into the 2026-2027 draft budget, which you will see in mid-July. And so with that, I'll pass it over to Chief Development Officer Lane Clegg.
Actually, Chief Executive Officer, Stephen was going to make this and we didn't get that changed. Oops. So pretty simple presentation today. We want to talk about the things that we've been doing recently, let you know what our funding request is, but also talk about maybe a process where we can make this funding development planning a little bit easier for both of our organizations, and then talk about some of the projects that we're working on today and have in the future. So recently, as most of you know, we focused on a more productive service structure. In June of 2024, we did a big service change. Following that, we've had an increase in ridership of 1.5%. That may not sound like much, but with a service change this big, that actually is a big milestone. Many of these kinds of service changes result in a loss of ridership in the first subsequent year as people get used to the new system. I can tell you we've had a couple of routes that have doubled ridership and a handful more that are up over 50%. So overall, we're very happy with it. We've got a couple of routes that we'd like to work on, making sure people know that they exist differently today than they used to, and what the benefits would be, but we're very excited. We also helped host a Community Transit Association of Idaho Transit Day at the Capitol. It's a first of its kind in many, many years. It was designed both to get all of the transit agencies in the state together and also to do some education for the business community and the leadership community in our region, especially invited legislators to come. It revealed a lot of information that I think a lot of people weren't aware of previously. For instance, we were able to use the American Public Transportation Association's economic impact toolkit to show that in the state of Idaho, the combined investment of the 11 biggest transit agencies, the ones that provide public transportation, has an economic impact on the state of over $93 million for an investment about a third of that. So the ROI is about 3 to 1. We can provide you with a link to that study if you'd like. We also completed an intersection rebuild with bus stop improvements at State and 18th. Initially, this was just going to be bus stop improvements. We learned that the mass of the signal arms and the drainage at that intersection were really pretty subpar, so it ended up turning into a full intersection rebuild. In doing that, we were able to rebuild all of the ramps and the drainage so that that intersection both works better, but also is more efficient in terms of your maintenance and our maintenance. Also, was the first time we've used real-time arrival screens, and so we've got those installed at that intersection. We'll soon install them on Fairview as well, the inner portion of Fairview, as a pilot, figure out which ones work the best, how well we can maintain them, and then move forward with getting that real-time arrival information at all of our major stops. So really important project, and we appreciate your support for it. because it ended up being a full intersection rebuild. We had to do a lot of coordination with your folks, and I think it turned out quite well. We've also initiated construction of en route charging at Main Street Station. If you've been downtown the last couple of days, you may have noticed all the buses on the streets. That's what we used to have. And typically nowadays, most of them end up underground at Main Street. But for the next 8 weeks, it'll be fully closed to buses while we do trenching and electrical installation so that ultimately we can have en route charging under there. And that will allow those new electric buses to do a full run using heaters or air conditioners or whatever may be required at that particular time of year without having to go back to the base to charge. It also is resilience for our system. We don't have any other place to charge. And so by having that charging down in Main Street, if necessary, will, if something happened at the base, for instance, we'd have another place to charge. So pretty exciting stuff for us. Our request this year is really simple. We have our general assessment, which in this case has moved up to $6,758. That's the overhead expenses that are shared among our non-service partners. And then you all give us a special assessment to support the PASS program and your employees who use it of a little over $2,500. So in all, we're only asking for $9,268 this year. I'd like to talk about last year, it was well over 60,000. Some years it's back to this. Another year it might be even more than that, all based typically on capital projects. And what we'd like to do is talk to you about exploring an MOU or other kind of agreement to outline longer term commitments by both of us and potential projects and goals that we could agree upon and maybe make our budget processes a little more smooth. We could smooth out lumps in those capital projects if you wanted, or at least you would have those upcoming, knowing what the expectation was in an upcoming year so you could plan for it. We could consider aligning our 5-year work plan and your 5-year work plan. Right now, they're not necessarily. We have projects that aren't in yours. You have projects that aren't in ours. And I think it would serve us both well if we work together. They're mostly aligned, but not quite. And then the other thing we could do is have an agreement to some process if those plans change. So right now, typically our partners, if they have a budget issue or some other kind of issue and they make a decision that impacts a project of ours, they just do that unilaterally. And what happens is we have certain requirements because of our FTA funding to do public outreach around many of those decisions. And so if we were to enter into this longer term agreement, we could have a process that would allow for that public outreach before that decision gets made on your part and meet the requirements that we're required to meet when those kinds of changes happen. It also would serve as the backstop to support a non-appropriation in that longer term agreement. If we agree to, some level of funding over the long term, you can always change it based on this process. And we've got that kind of an agreement with the city of Boise today. It's worked quite well, frankly, given us both a little bit of peace of mind in terms of what's upcoming in the next year's budget. The other thing that we have in that that agreement with the city of Boise, for instance, is communications expectations. We do ridership reports and those kinds of things on a regular basis. So I just wanted to introduce this. You don't have to make any decision today, but think about it. And we believe that it might be in both of our best interests to think about some kind of an agreement like this. For instance, we don't have cost estimate or years yet, but these are the projects that we have upcoming that we believe will be working with all of you to coordinate. And if you knew what those were, ahead of time, you know what they are, but if they were in your 5-year work plan, for instance, for sure, I think it would help us both. So I'll go through some of those real quickly. So current projects, we're in design on 23rd and State and 27th and State, also State and Bogart. At 23rd and State and 27th and State, ACHD's made a commitment to certain local match portion of that because of the pedestrian improvements. And again, we're going to replace 60-year-old signal masts that were left over from ITD with new ones. We've also got design and concept going at River and Pioneer to improve that stop and the pedestrian safety around it. And then I told you we were working on the Main Street electric charging. Thank you for working with us to be able to stage the buses on 9th Street as we do that. I think people will get used to it in a day or two. It's still a little bit sketchy as people are like, wait, what's going on here? Another project. And so we apologize if people are blaming you for 9th Street being closed. We know it's us, but thank you for working with us. We also know that as you go forward on design work on State Street, both the inner portion and the outer portion, that there is a lot of work that we need to do jointly and communication that we need to do jointly. And then there's other ongoing design reviews that we always end up working on. So improving that communication, we think, will be a really important step. Future projects, I listed some of those in that table. The State Street Raise Grant still is waiting final approval. We've been assured that it's a simple review to make sure all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. We'll be sure and communicate with you as soon as we get that. Within that, we've got some premium corridor improvements at Bloom and at Willow and at Bogart, at Gary Lane. In the future, we'd like to work on our other premium corridors. Right now, there's a project upcoming at Main and Fairview at Whitewater, but I think Fairview in general, as it moves west, we're going to want a lot of projects there, look at projects there. And then also Vista. We've really not done anything to upgrade the transit infrastructure on Vista other than the shelters on the most southern portion of it. So we think that there's probably some work there that we'd like to work on together. And then, of course, we've got the River and Pioneer project ongoing at the moment. In the future, I mentioned those other premium corridors, so those aren't in our plans today, either one of us. And I think it would be an opportunity to do that. Whether we sign an MOU or not, we should be doing that. And then just more integrated planning and review processes in general. And again, this is what we're asking for this year. As Tom said, no decision today, just a nod that your budget get built with this number in mind. We'll do the same. And at the end of August, hopefully we'll both have a budget that matches and we'll go forward with a cooperative agreement. We've moved up the timeline on those. It used to be that those would get signed in October and November. That left us starting the year without those agreements signed. So we're trying to get all of those signed by October this year. And with that, I'd be happy to stand for some questions. And it still says Chief Development Officer there. The phone number was correct.
Excellent. Heather, Commissioner Pickering?
Yeah, thanks, Madam President. Thanks for the presentation, Elaine. Yeah, no questions about the financial request. It's pretty standard for us. Yeah, that's no big deal. I'm very interested in learning more about the MOU process. And I think, when I first started on the commission, we weren't coordinating and accepting VRT's projects and incorporating that into our integrated 5-year work plan. So I'm happy that we've made so many strides since then in just the last 4 years. And then it makes sense to me that we would have more nuanced, collaboration, especially highlighting when we, don't agree right? What are those parameters? I want to emphasize. So I was curious, like, as you've done the research to put this together, are there other municipalities of a similar size with a public transit system that have come up with some system that you're kind of building towards that we could also look at as an example?
So, as you may know, we're unique in the way that we're funded, and because of that, we're sort of unique around the country. I actually came up with this idea in researching around the country who else was dependent on annual budget processes. And the biggest of those systems around the country that is WMATA in Washington, D.C. And they have a series of memorandums of understanding with all of the municipalities and counties in their region, and in fact, with both states. While they do receive some dedicated funding, they do receive funding from the federal government. It's also on an annual budget process. And so they've been able to stabilize their funding expectations, both with themselves and with their partners with that MOU. Since I took this job, I've learned that there's a couple of other agencies around the country that are also working through this kind of a process, and I can certainly get you a list of those.
I think that would be really helpful. Because I think we're going to be creating something that works best for both agencies and the different roles and jurisdictions and decision-making authorities that we both have. So, and then I think especially, and you highlighted this briefly in your presentation, but especially as more projects come online for State Street, I think, having a clear and defined process for decision-making that might not fit neatly within the MOU. So I think maybe there's a compatible separate agreement as well that outlines how we can foster decisions.
I appreciate that. I think we could refer to each of our defined processes in the MOU and also perhaps commit to, if there's some disagreement on it, how we would resolve that disagreement. That would be my expectation. I do think, as I've been trying to figure out how to stabilize our outlook in funding every year. I've been talking about this with other municipalities and counties, as well as our other partners like you and Boise State and CWI. And I've gotten very good reception to the concept. So now the proof will be in the pudding of figuring out how to actually get it on paper.
Correct. Thanks, Wayne.
Commissioner Nielsen?
Yeah, thanks, Elaine, for coming. One other, there's been so much areas of improvement for coordination, having even in prior years being at a staff level, saying, can't people talk to each other? But I'm glad the improvements are being made. But one area I think, I'm just curious of your reaction that maybe we could work better together are on the neighborhood plans for pet and bike, and making sure that, I think there was maybe some reluctance because routes were changing to lock in, but I think that's an area that we should be working together closely on as those plans get updated, particularly with the priority transit corridors as well.
Yes, I would agree with that. I appreciate that. Especially prior to this most recent service change, I think there was some notion that routes would be in flux, and that it's hard to commit to a bus network. But as we've done our planning, and now as we're doing our long range plan with our update of Valley Connect 2.0 into 3.0, it's clear that there are some corridors that are always going to have service. The nuances of the end of route and how the turnarounds happen, and some of those may change, but the basic corridor is one that's so important to this region. It's going to have service, and would love to be part of those neighborhood plans, especially focused on those corridors and recognizing the nuances around some of the end of route kinds of things.
Right. That's Madam President. That's where I think that's where your increased ridership at that micro local level, making
those connections to
where there are barriers to getting to the transit stop. So appreciate that. And then I don't know, a long time ago, I know the Compass director, ACHD director, and ITD district engineer would meet on a regular basis. And I think as we've grown, regardless of an MOU or not, and outside of Compass, there seemed to be a benefit to all the agencies of meeting, once or twice a year, just on the big issues that everybody had a skin in the game on. And have you ever had, I don't know how long you've been the director, I think with VRT and the growth of the region, that there needs to be that kind of institutionalized checking in with each other. Is that something that, do you see that need or?
Yeah, that's actually been on my radar. And in fact, I talked with President Gold this week about increasing just between our two agencies, the communication and making it more regular. And I'll commit to doing that. But you bring up an interesting point. When I took this job, it was apparent to me that VRT wasn't looked at, wasn't perceived as one of those big regional agencies that always needed to be at the table. And as we grow, and especially if we're able to grow this system, I think it's going to be more and more important that we're at the table early, so that things like where are the major routes going to be, where are those connections going to be, are considered as those things are designed. And so I would fully support an effort like that. I'm beginning regular meetings with the new Compass director, and but those will be one-on-one. And I think those big coordinating meetings, it used to be that we were small enough that the Treasure Valley Partnership would be the place where people convened, and if something happened, they'd invite other people in. I think that hasn't been the case, not because they've been trying to exclude anyone, but that's they're dealing with more local issues, and the regional issues have fallen to someone else, and no one's really picked it up. So I would tend to agree that that would be a great new thing to start or restart.
Great.
Commissioner McKinney?
Yeah, Elaine, thank you. Just one quick question for clarification on some of the new upcoming projects that VRT has in their list of projects. A number of them said premium. I just want to make sure I understand what we're talking about. Is this a premium bus service program? What does that involve?
So for us, it's a premium corridor. If we've identified that it has the kind of density, the kind of development around it that we can serve well with 15-minute service. And it's important enough that we will serve it well with 15-minute service. So right now we only have 3. That's State Street, Fairview, and Vista. In our upcoming plan, we anticipate having about 8 of those. And the idea on those premium corridors is that's where you get the mass of mass transit. That's where the majority of ridership and connections happen. And so you need good infrastructure to serve those riders and connections, both connections on bicycle and foot to the stops, but also at the stops if you're doing at grade transfers. For instance, you need good crosswalks and all of those things.
Okay. All right.
And then amenities, shelters, benches, this on-time arrival information, those kinds of things.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
You bet.
Thanks, Elaine. Thanks for the presentation, all the updates, and for highlighting, opportunities to better communicate, and mentioning that we recently talked about regular meetings with our staff and leadership as well. I think those are really good opportunities for us to kind of work out some of the details on these things that you're talking about. And I appreciate Commissioner Nielsen bringing up the opportunity with the neighborhood plans.
Yes.
The Northwest Boise Neighborhood Plan will be underway this year, and a lot of those items that you talked about are in that area. So I think that's a really good opportunity to work on that together and incorporate those things. I think we'll work on getting those regular meetings set up and get some of those details worked out and move forward.
Thank you so much. Really
All right.
appreciate the opportunity
Yeah.
to be here.
Thank you, Elaine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that moves us to our last work session, which is Idaho Transportation Department D3 SH69 Kuna to Meridian Corridor Plan. presentation. Tom Laws again.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the commission. I don't know if you realize this, but it's been a fun work session today. We've had bicyclists, pedestrian transit, and now we're going to be talking roadways. So for this presentation, as you mentioned, ITD District 3, in addition to their consultant DKS Associates, will be presenting on the State Highway 69 corridor study. This took place south of Overland Road all the way down to Kuna and Orchard Avenue. And it's been an effort that ITD has been working on for the last several years. They're nearing the completion of this plan. And so over the last few weeks, I've been doing a roadshow to a variety of different partners, providing some of those updates. It's information item only. And with that, I'll pass it over to Mark and DKS.
Welcome, Mark.
Madam President, members of the commission, thank you for inviting us to present. My name is Mark Wallstall. I'm a senior planner at ITD District 3. And to my right is
Megan Romanesco. I'm filling in for Leah Kelsey today with DKS Associates.
Welcome.
Right click. Okay. Hello. We'd like to present on the corridor project here on State Highway 69. It's from Overland Road to Orchard. We were not covering the interchange on this particular project. As it initiated as a traffic study, it was advertised as such and awarded as such. So we have the traffic and crash history on it. We wanted to have a proposed vision, and we've had 2 public open houses, virtual, and we'll provide feedback we received on that. ITD, or our predecessor, Department of Public Works, State of Idaho, had its first hand on Meridian Road in 1931 as a 2-lane rural highway. In 1986, an environmental assessment, NEPA, was done for widening from 2 to 4 lanes for the entire corridor. From that, in 1990, widening project was done from Amity to Overland. And then there was an environmental evaluation reassessment, which I found interesting because we have one of those on State Highway 16 right now. That one re-cleared the way for widening from Orchard to Amity. That had a out build year of 2022. So when we started this effort, we knew that we were coming to the end of that calculated year, and we wanted to look at the next 25 years beyond that. So as back when it went from 2 to 4 lanes, more development, more traffic, more crashes and delay time. Interesting background if you want to see what the intersection, what it looked like. There's U of I actually has imagery. There was for some reason, someone did a regional flight in 1938, black and white. And it's interesting taking a look at that through the U of I site and just seeing how much change has occurred since then. So we had a corridor vision, which we wanted to keep traffic moving, allow safe and efficient access on and off the corridor, and to provide safe facilities and crossings for bicyclists and pedestrians. The design for it now is a rural corridor. We know as it infills, it's going to go to suburban and is already with more retail going in. So that's what we were looking at providing for. Study timeline 2019, we started with a 2045 traffic model from Compass, and we looked at a variety of standard and non-standard intersection improvements and segment types. Our first open house was meant to be in person, but we got hit by COVID, and we ended up being the first virtual open house for ITD as we spun on a dime and got that set up. We identified points of controversy through the feedback that we received. We put down no high capacity intersection treatments on ACHD roadways. That was more of a committee approach that we understood, but we had through intersections as a choice. We have that locally on State Street at Veterans Memorial. That was a 5-to-1 down thumb to up thumb. It was about 50-50 on a continuous flow intersection at Overland. It would have been on the ACHD Overland portion, not the ITD portion. There was support for an expressway. There were the usual comments of not liking Eagle Road and the expressway's antidote to it. After we received comments, we actually went on pause, some of it to think about it, but also we had a project on Karcher Road, State Highway 55 in Canyon County. I had been the manager for the NEPA clearance on that one, and we had through use on that project and such, and we had a contract go to develop a PS&E bid package for construction. We actually started construction from Farmway to, trying to remember, not Midway, Middleton, Farmway to Middleton, 6 months ago, I think. So our headquarters understood that there was minimal guidance on how much we go with non-standard intersection treatments versus standard. We know that you can get additional efficiencies out of non-standard, but at a cost of driver expectation. So that consideration went on for an extended amount of time. Because the project in Canyon County was designed for construction, we let them take the lead and we sort of went into hibernation while these issues were hashed out, and we would get back into it once answers were forthcoming. Also during this time, the city of Kuna was going forward with a railroad crossing, Meridian Road extension consideration and study. So that was something else we were going to need to fold into our project. So when we finally got the answer to not consider non-standard intersections, we went through rescoping with DKS, then 6 Mile, to have a new agreement. We had scenarios identified and vetted by our headquarters. We updated to the 2050 compass forecast, and we also had strong requests from not only ITD District 3 Development Services, but the cities of Kuna and Meridian, that they were receiving quite a few private development applications, and they wanted roll plots so they would have a map to show developers what they would be building towards. We selected a full access scenario, which means half-mile and mile intersections. And we went forward with that, the public in a virtual open house number 2 on April 7th through 21st. Near the end of our presentation, we'll discuss the feedback we received. So we wanted to also to make sure that cities and ACHD Compass were aware of what we were doing, and hence our presentations here. And we're still going to expecting to get the final traffic study report in July and approve it then.
So to give an overview of the existing and future traffic in the area, like Mark mentioned, the project is kind of broken up into 2 segments here. We have the north-south segment, which goes from Overland Road to Kuna Road, and then the east-west segment, which goes from Orchard Avenue to Kuna Road. On the north-south segment, towards the north end of the corridor, that's the higher volume part of the corridor, the existing volumes are about 37,000 vehicles per day, and the 2050 volumes are expected to more than double at about 77,000 vehicles per day, which exceeds what we're seeing on Eagle Road today. On the east-west portion of the corridor, those volumes are actually projected to decrease by 2050, and this is because of the plans to extend Meridian Road to the south, as well as reconfigure the Kuna Curve intersection to a 4-leg intersection. And one thing to note on that, both of those improvements, as Mark mentioned, were included in the Compass modeling to get our volumes and also in our traffic modeling scenarios. So the travel times for the corridor currently for the northbound, which is AM, which is the dominant direction in the morning, is about 15 minutes, and the southbound dominant direction in the PM is about 13 minutes. And with the 2050 volumes, if we do nothing, the southbound PM commute is expected to increase by 3 minutes, and the northbound AM commute is expected to increase to 42 minutes. And with the proposed vision improvements that we are sharing with you today, those travel times are expected to decrease to a little bit better than what we're seeing today at 14.8 minutes for that northbound AM commute and 11 minutes for the southbound PM commute. We did a crash summary of all of the crashes that occurred in the project on the project segment between 2019 and 2023, and there were 579 crashes on State Highway 69. Most of these crashes were intersection related, and there were 5 fatalities on the corridor. 3 of them were at the northern end, with 1 of those at Calderwood and 2 at Victory Road. There was 1 fatality between Columbia and Hubbard and 1 at the Kuna curve. One thing to note here is that 3 out of those 5 fatalities were drug and alcohol, occurred between drug or alcohol impaired drivers. This gives you an idea of where those 579 crashes are concentrated. So at the northern end, there's a much higher concentration of crashes. This is the higher volume end of the corridor, as mentioned, so that's not surprising. And there's also a higher volume, a higher concentration at all of the major mile intersections. Of the 579 crashes, 47% of them were serious, meaning they were injury or fatalities, and that number is greater than the 31% for Idaho statewide rate for roadways in Idaho in 2023. Another thing worth noting is that ITD has marked this as a high priority safety corridor because most of the segments on 69 do have a greater frequency of crashes compared to similar corridors in Idaho. And that was noted in the most recent 2021 ITD safety corridor analysis. Getting into the proposed vision, so this is for that north-south segment, and the vision is to widen it from 5 lanes to 7 lanes and install a continuous raised median, which will limit access everywhere but the half-mile and 1-mile intersections to right in, right out only. Those half-mile and 1-mile intersections will be full access. The plan is also to add a buffered 10-foot multi-use pathway on each side of the roadway and add right turn lanes at all intersections and access points to improve safety. This is the cross section for that north-south segment. Here we have a 30 to 50 foot landscape buffer, which will be outside of the right of way. That will include that multi-use path. The multi-use path on each side will be offset by a minimum 8-foot distance from the roadway, but that will likely be larger than 8 feet. And there will be 3 travel lanes in each direction, all of which will be 12 feet wide, and there will be an 18-foot raised median. There is about 125 to 140 feet of existing right-of-way along the north-south segment, and for the cross-section mentioned above, we need a minimum of 122 feet of right-of-way. So the goal is to fit these improvements within the existing right-of-way where possible. However, there will be some locations for drainage improvements or the addition of right turn lanes or dual lefts where there may be some additional right-of-way or easements required. This is for the east-west segment of the corridor. The plan there is to widen Avalon Street to 5 continuous lanes, and This section is broken up into two segments per se. One is a more urban section between Orchard Avenue and K, which will have a 7-foot attached sidewalk, and it will transition into a 10-foot multi-use pathway from K Avenue to Kuna Road. And again, there will be right turn lanes added at the intersections here to improve safety. This is the cross section for Kuna Road to K Avenue. This is nearly identical to the north-south cross section, minus the fact that it is 2 lanes in each direction, and then the center lane will be a 14-foot two-way left turn lane instead of an 18-foot raised median. This is the more urban cross section from K to Orchard Avenue, and this will also have 2 lanes in each direction with a 14-foot two-way left turn lane and 7-foot attached sidewalk. Here's an example of the 18-foot raised median. We looked at a lot of different median sizes for this project, and we landed on the 18 feet because it allows for a F-350 passenger car, also sometimes known as the Idaho design vehicle, to make U-turns at the half-mile and major-mile intersections. Here's an example of the 10-foot detached multi-use path. Here we'll have, again, at least a minimum 8-foot buffer, but likely a larger buffer than 8 feet. And this will occur on the entire north-south segment, as well as that section on Avalon Street east of K Avenue. And then from K to Orchard, there will be the attached 7-foot sidewalks. The pedestrian crossings at the major mile and half-mile intersections will be single-stage pedestrian crossings, and at the half-mile intersections, the plan is to signalize those intersections as needed when warranted by volumes as volumes increase. So there's some special considerations that we're going to walk through, one of which being limited right-of-way or steep cut and fill slopes. So this is on the north end, just south of Harris Street, where both of these occur. And some ideas that we thought could work for these areas would be possibly tiered barrier protected pathways, which would have the multi-use path closer to the roadway, but it would be elevated and protected by a barrier. And in those areas where there is very steep slopes, an option for the multi-use path would be to use retaining walls to separate it, and that would limit the amount of right-of-way take needed.
The Kuna curve was constructed in 1988. As part of the Meridian Road extension that Kuna looked at, in which we concurred, the intention would be to remove the Kuna curve and replace it with a 3 or presumably 4-way intersection. Other items that have come up this year on the project were there was a build grant application period in January. We worked with Compass, who developed, and we submitted an application to do a planning environmental linkages study for extending Meridian Road south to Cunamora, and also to look at what alignments Cunamora Road could have. Realize that's an ACHD facility, and that back in 2011 and 12, I think you had 2 phases of a study on that. But that's what we'd be looking at. We really don't want to have a facility that crosses the New York Canal 5 times in a limited stretch. So that was what was really pushing us there. There's some other projects I'll talk about that extend beyond there, but the build grant announcements were set for June. We have not heard yet who the winners and losers are, but if we are successful, we put in for a $3 million amount for it, which I said was enough. I hope it is. Otherwise, I'll hear about it at budget time. Special consideration. I mentioned before Overland Road. We had determined that a high-capacity intersection was needed at that time, ACHD was not endorsing our look at putting a half CFI in with legs on Overland Road. It's mentioned that also that as we were looking at different facilities, non-standard, that we don't support that too. That essentially put this future high capacity solution would be vertical, not horizontal. This is not our first presentation. We'd received some constructive feedback at a prior one, and I've been thinking since on what would have been a better way to answer their observation and question, and that was, why didn't we continue on and go through vertical alternatives with this intersection? One of the things which I believe is true is that since this is a very important intersection for both road agencies, that a cooperative project would work best. I did a cooperative project with ACHD back in 2017, 18, 19 on State and Glenwood, and having both agencies at the table in equal manner is positive. But then also this contract we have with DKS was a traffic study. We did not in our advertisement for it state that we needed structural engineering nor surveying. And once you go to a vertical structure, you're in 3D, you need a topographic survey. And I know our consultant services group would say, was that in your original? Did you have selection based upon any of those? And I'd have to say no, and they would say it's a different project. So that's why we did not pursue it. We decided to keep it separate and not pursue that with this project, but we have identified it as a need to going forward.
One other thing to note on those two special considerations is just that for the Meridian Road extension, like I mentioned previously, and the Kuna curve, those were included in the reconfiguration. Those were included in the compass modeling and our traffic modeling, as well as the Overland intersection was included as a high capacity intersection in the model, and our traffic models. This was done to just ensure that enough volume was getting to State Highway 69 so that we were confident that it was sized correctly for the 2050 volumes. And so for this project, we scoped 3 options, and for all 3 options, the major mile intersections were full access intersections, and what varied between the 3 alternatives was the amount of access at the half-mile intersections. So the proposed vision was full access, and then another option looked at restricting that a little bit more to right in, right out, left in, and then the third option restricted it even more to just right in, right out only. And we did extensive modeling between all of the options, and what we found was that at the end of the day, the travel times all performed very similarly, and they were within 1 minute of each other. It wasn't like the first phase of the project where we looked at different high capacity intersections and there was a clear winner between those options. These all performed very similarly. And one thing we did find with the full access option was that with the half-mile intersections being full access, it actually reduced the traffic volumes at the major mile intersections because traffic was rerouting to those full access half-mile options, and it therefore decreased the delays at the major mile intersections.
Okay. Our virtual public open house had recorded 1,900 visitations. The website received 135 comment forms. We had additional 18 people commenting through either email or phone calls. Looking to the reaction, 55% expressed support, 29% did not support, 16% remain neutral. And sometimes it's better to look at the smaller picture than the bigger picture to get the details of why responses were what they were. In terms of supports and likes, converting the Kuna curve into a standard intersection was unanimous. There was no controversy in going forward with doing that. Widening, increasing capacity, that was a 7-to-1 preference. Those who did not want to see increased capacity, break them down into 3 categories. One was, you can't build your way out of growth, so don't even try. 2 was to put transit in instead of a 3rd lane. And the third was you don't want to encourage growth, don't put the extra lane in. So that was pretty much the long writing that they had that went with their comments. Buffered multi-use pathway, that had 28 positive and 6 negative comments. I was sort of surprised it was rated that high. A lot of congratulations on us putting it in. They thought as the state highway agency we weren't going to do it. And the negatives, I think best encapsulated by one comment that you're not going to put a 5-year-old on a bicycle right next to a 55-mile-an-hour road. That was more of their discomfort rather than not liking bicyclists or pedestrians. In terms of multi-use pathway, we've had those constructed along Chinden as we've widened Chinden. On these, we've got at least a minimum 8-foot buffer for the pathway to be offset. When we had talked with Brighton Development, which is another conversation we'll have shortly, they had asked if we would insist on dropping the pathway down to the same elevation as the roadway. And we said no, that vertical separation is okay, it's good. It's better than dropping it down to horizontal and then putting an MSE wall to trap someone in next to the roadway. So strong support for multi-use pathways. Raised median, you also see that down under dislikes. That was about a 60-40, 60% liking it for increased safety, 40% who didn't. Typically were people who were losing their direct left in or left out by the median. One of them was law enforcement emergency services who thought that it would impede their response time. And that was pretty much the break points on preference to non-preference. We had showed right-hand turn lanes, which we had a very strong positive on our first open house. Again, very strong supported, and we are putting those in. It matches in that this is a high rear-end collision corridor. And the comments were such like, I'm afraid I'm going to get hit every time I slow down to make a right turn. So that's a no controversy. And people were interested in overall safety improvements. Dislikes, there was unanimous condemnation for us not improving improvements at Overland Road, I-84. So that tells me that one is a non-controversial go forward with. People did not like putting signalized intersections at the half mile. They didn't necessarily dislike as much having half-mile intersections, but they did not like the signal lights. Those would tie in with the typical "we hit Eagle Road" comments we seem to get on every public involvement effort we have. I was actually surprised. We had a number of comments supporting CFIs, roundabouts, through U's, saying, don't listen to those naysayers, put them in. And like, oh, there's actually a core group out there who wants to see non-standard features. Expressway, that was the antidote to Eagle Road, and that was our thought when we had it originally. We didn't pursue it forward. It did not. We did a cost-benefit analysis on it. It did not score well on that. Plus, you have a free flow facility like an expressway, and you run it into a non-free flow condition at Overland. It just doesn't make sense to do that. You'd have to do what we're building right now at the 1684 interchange, a system interchange to tie into to keep free-flowing traffic free-flowing all the way through. And that was a bit beyond what we were willing to do with our project. Some people wanted acceleration, deceleration lanes to be added. Looking at the speed and the spacing per IDAPA, we could get deceleration lanes in, but once you put an acceleration lane in also, it was just another through lane. It didn't work. And I already addressed the raised median limiting access. Again, what I said before, that there were some requests for us to reconsider non-traditional intersections. There were some comments about increasing noise and mitigation efforts for noise along the corridor. Calderwood already has had access that's just south of Overland to left-ins only. We thought that if you look at Overland, that's part of the intersection influence area. You look at Calderwood again too. There was a lamentation on the loss of rural environment and community from some commenters. And there was comments on speed limit changes. What I've learned from all of our public involvement, you'll have roughly half the people say, you need to slow it down, people are dying, and the other half say, you better not slow it down. One of the more interesting comments received, which said that if you put a third lane in, make the inside lane a passing lane. I'm like, what? They said, right now you've got two vehicles driving the speed limit and people are going road rage because they can't get past the people driving the speed limit. So if you have a passing lane in there, you can take care of that. And ITD does not try to encourage speeding, so we're not going to do that. But that was an interesting comment to have another speed zone in there. So our next step was to complete the traffic study report. We had no additional funding for projects in our 7-year budget. Our new budget got posted yesterday, draft budget to our board, who is on their board tour right now as I speak, looking at Kuna as part of their tour, and Kuna Road and 69. And then they have their regular sit-down board meeting tomorrow at District 3. They will be covering some of these items. We do have a regular maintenance schedule in 2029. I don't know if that changed. I didn't have a chance to go through the just released draft ITIP. In February of this year, the IT board approved staff to pursue a STAR agreement with Brighton Development. They're on the southeast corner of 69 and Lake Hazel. We gave it a key number of 24818 with project limits of Victory Road intersection non-inclusive to Columbia intersection non-inclusive. There was a meeting yesterday of preliminary engineering design. I was supposed to go with that, but my back appreciated me going to the physical therapist instead, so I can't give you inside reports on that. But I don't think 30 million is going to cover, or 35. The STAR agreement is to a not to exceed $35 million amount. Brighton right now with their level of design and uncertainty on cost is looking at 30 million. That's not all going to be on 69. Lake Hazel will receive considerable upgrades also, as I believe they have a half-mile frontage on Lake Hazel. We had thought that we might get to an agreement in June, but since the agreement includes all the work and they're still working on their design package, the agreement is has to wait for that task to be finished, and we expect it by this summer to be finished and executed. We've told people that with that in motion, that we were not going to look at other designs or projects until we knew what Brighton was constructing. This is going to be our 4th STAR agreement project in the district. We had the Village, we've had Costco on Shinden, and we had High Desert Development. I don't know whether that is Winco or just Winco got it developed for them. They're at Linder and Shinden. And it's the same engineering firm, Kittleson, who's been on all 3 of them and who's on this one. So that gives us pretty good confidence that they know how to do this project like stars. Other projects that tie into 69, we're still finishing up the design for the I-84 auxiliary lane on eastbound I-84 from Meridian to Eagle. Recent completions, we got the floodplain permit okayed by City of Meridian. We identified we need to put a second right turn southbound onto Eagle turn lane. We've got 2 north, 1 south. We need to have 2 south. So we have to move the signal poles. We need to impinge a little bit more on the floodplain there. We're also working with City of Meridian on casing one of their water pipes. That's ongoing. Somehow that failed to be done when we went from 2 to 4 lanes. So that's a catch-up item that would be part of our project, but paid for separately by City of Meridian.
Madam President.
Commissioner Pickering.
Mark, I hate to interrupt you, but I have to leave in a few. Can I ask you guys our
Certainly.
questions
Sure.
since you're nearing the end here? I assume. Thanks, Madam President. So I'm heartened by the study, and I appreciate you guys coming to present this to us because obviously it's very complex. We'll be working closely together on it, I'm certain. But I think I want to emphasize like your points that you made about folks don't want a repeat of Eagle Road. And yet I'm hearing kind of your assessment of some of these public comments is kind of like you're almost inadvertently trying to kind of build something like that. I mean, obviously there's some improvements with right in, right out, really heartened by the raised median, some of those improvements. I think those are fabulous. Love that you guys are considering those and evaluating that, but it still feels like you're obviously increased, like speed's still really high, you're increasing capacity, and especially with the eye on safety, as you've mentioned, that this has been a challenge. I'm not quite seeing how you guys hope all of these changes will actually improve safety, because you're increasing volume and you're still maintaining a lot of access. And so I think some folks are saying they want an expressway, some folks want access, right? You can't please everybody. And so I think like those types of pushes and pulls that naturally come with any type of expansion project like this are obviously on full display, but I'm not hearing clearly from you guys what it is that you're actually building, or is it just like an Eagle Road light? So not that you need to answer that, but I think in your next presentation, I'd like to actually have that a little bit more pointed in your assessment and how these designs are trying to usher in a safer environment, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Okay.
Commissioner.
Thank you. And I have to bounce, so I apologize, but thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
So that project, right now it's under 2031 build year, under the last year's ITIP and this year's draft ITIP. However, that could move up. We have another project, which is the I-84 mobility project, which is looking at what to do with the fifth lane that will be available with the upcoming demolition replacement of the 5-mile overpass. That's the last original 1960s rural overpass structure in the valley. So this study is looking at, do we do 5 lanes throughout? Do we do 4 plus an auxiliary lane? We're also looking at ramp metering. All of this is for us to be able to answer the question of what works best for all of those. And we have backup when asked, why did we make a decision? We have the study to point to. That one is, I think we finally recollected what we needed to of data and traffic counts for that. We've already had the models built, and as soon as they start putting the data in, then I'll have some better updates. But we're looking at a spring 26 completion on that. That also includes a phasing plan. And that phasing plan, I've been told, will be used to say, are we going to move up the 84 eastbound auxiliary lane project that we're designing? And that's going to be the driver of what and when we try to do projects on the interstate. Then also we have out the our board in February approved money to do 4 studies. One of them goes under the State Highway 69 extension study from Kuna Road, Avalon Road, and 69 to Blacks Creek interchange. It's looking at network connectivity. We have on board with us Tom Laws and Bella Loera to my back right. We are still negotiating scope of work because this is very, if you know Marianne Waldinger, this is very wonky stuff, and trying to figure out a traffic demand model based project like this is taxing my brain, maybe not others. So that one is going to, lead to further steps. But as a network connectivity, we're scoping it. It's a little bit different than what was put into our February board meeting, if you were going to go to that. It's going to go from State Highway 45 in Beaumont, which is what Canyon County road agencies have always been looking at as a point to connect to the east. We'll also look at a hypothetical State Highway 16 extension south. We'll be looking at all of the mile section roads continuing on down to some vicinity of Cunamora. We are not defining where Cunamora is. It's not an alignment study. There's a Boise Dev article which covers this quite well that came out 2 days ago. I gave Tom Laws the link to it. Maybe you can link it to the board. But we're not having a map with any property lines, houses, anything beneath it, because people will be distracted by it, and we're not studying that. We're just doing links and nodes for a travel demand model to figure out what will happen if you put a partial beltway facility in that area, and whether it would be an arterial, whether it be an expressway. If you don't, let's say, punch through with Eagle Road, what does that mean? If you don't punch through, put 10 mile across the train tracks, what does that mean? So that one has, once we get to notice to proceed, we have a 9-month expectation of completion on it. Our district engineer has said really that's his vision of the first step of doing a Pell study where you would look at a Cunamora Road Beltway. And I'll throw in my last bit of knowledge on that one. State of Idaho owns right-of-way from the interstate along Cunamora to South Vista Road. That was purchased in 1929 as part of the Old Oregon Trail Southern Branch. Back in 1913, when the state of Idaho began doing state highways, they did not use numbers, they used noun descriptions. And US 30, which is pretty much now Interstate 84, was Old Oregon Trail. And so this was a branch of it that wasn't a branch forever, but right away was purchased. So we do have some state interest, even if it were to be an ACHD project, that we'd be covering some 100 foot of right away through there. And I think I've probably talked your ear off by now. And we'll stand for questions. Madam President, Commissioners.
Great. Any questions? Commissioner McKinney?
Madam President, thank you. Mark, just a couple of quick questions. Many portions of Meridian Road, Highway 69 south of Overland are in what is currently, it's turning suburban, but much of it is still rural. Is the plan seems to suggest that you would build basically an urban section with curb gutter all the way along there. Is that something that is intended regardless of the development status of the surrounding land? Or, for example, I know on Chinden, many parts of the Chinden widening still are built with drainage swales. They don't have curb and gutter. They have the pathways, but they don't have the other sort of urban section characteristics. What's the intention there?
One of the driving points of that is when the roadway was expanded to 4 lanes, generically right-of-way was purchased 60 foot left of center line, 65 foot right of center line. And that's where we are sending our drainage to now. The new facility is looking about 122 foot. We're anticipating we will have some, if we can get rural drainage, fine. There's a City of Meridian has a 50-foot setback along State Highway 69 as a special corridor. Kuna has a, I say 50 foot, yeah, 50-foot setback there, and Kuna has a 50-foot setback for residential, 30-foot setback for commercial. And some of that would be available to put drainage there. We're looking at rolled curb, and if we need to do urban drainage, that's what it's set up for, to keep it within the footprint. If we can go outside the footprint in some of that setback and put rural drainage in, we have that at the village. If you're driving down, you can see that big grass strip that we use that as drainage. So we'll just see how. We did not do a full drainage study on this. We did checks. We looked at drainage reports from developers. If you look at the 2000 plan set, 1990, in the back on the standard sheets, they include French drains. I can't say I've ever seen a French drain out there. Some parts has soils that are pretty tight and don't drain well, but if you punch a hole through them and let them go down to the basalt layer underneath, it seems to work out. But that's something that's going to require actual design. We did vision, we did some level of concept, but we didn't have the engineering sufficient to answer fully your question, sir.
Okay. Then one additional question then. You mentioned questions concerning the Overland Road intersection. And of course, I know this is kind of stepping out of it a little bit, but because you mentioned it, vertical options for intersection treatments, what sort of thing does that imagine? What sorts of things are being considered for vertical intersection options?
Nothing officially, but we've seen vertical options some consultants have brought forward. We had actually vertical structure training, one lunch with one consulting group. And one of the ones out there is you put all left turns go to second level and they have their own signals. And that way you clear your left turns out of your signal queue at grade. That wouldn't really be an option here because you're so close to the interchange. And anyone you dumped off that structure to the north, are you going left, or are you going right? There's just going to be too much turbulence. So my thought on is, what if there are different ways you could just continue State Highway 69, put a roadway or two over the top and down. The traffic study that was done for the interchange modification report for our 84 auxiliary lane already showed that we're having stacking PM left turn off the interstate. There's not enough green time to get that back up through the intersection without backing. So you could elevate Overland Road over the intersection. But those are just mental doodlings that would not interfere with northbound operations. But that's something that why you'd really want to have a separate study to go through, see where exactly your structure footprints would be, where you depart from current grade. I think, can you remember what our standard is? 18-foot clearance, vertical clearance for bridge structure? Okay, somewhere, I think around 18, if I remember right. So you need to have the survey to know what your clearances are, because that affects the size of your vehicles using it. It's just a lot more to go in vertical than laying out something horizontally in a hypothetical.
Great, thank you.
Welcome.
Commissioner Nielsen?
I have lots of questions, but I'm hungry, so I'm going to keep things short as possible. Couple of questions, and Megan, you or Mark, but do you think that volumes dropped? Was there any relationship with volumes dropping on Highway 69 when the 10-mile interchange opened? Did you look at any correlation between those parallel routes to the interstate? I'm just curious.
I don't have that answer for you exactly.
Yeah.
I could look and get back to you.
I can look up the traffic counts. I'm just nerdy that way.
Yeah,
so,
no,
but I
thanks.
didn't know if you looked at that as a reason.
Yeah, Leah may know that, but yeah, I'm not super familiar with that information.
And then the second, I'm just
Commissioner Nielsen, we did look at the effect of the Linder overpass. And when we did the calculations, it was 7,000 vehicles a day would be pulled out of the Overland Meridian intersection and reroute to Linder. So we do have that data, but not further west.
And then regarding you brought up the travel speeds. Haven't been the past project manager on 44 and 2026. Do you think with a half-mile full intersection, you can sustain a 55 mile an hour? I thought it would be standard 30. Where's the sweet spot where you maximize capacity by, what would be the appropriate speed limit to maximize capacity through the corridor with full half-mile intersections? I just don't think 55 is possible, but.
I mean, a lot of it's time of day that you can do 55 easy on Eagle Road at midnight. 3 in the afternoon, not so much.
But how far can you go 55? That's the question. Yeah. So
I'm not really involved in the project, but they're doing a variable speed limit test on Eagle Road coming up. At what point, I don't know. I should ask my traffic engineer to show up since he's the point on that one. But I mean, it's being looked at in terms of trying to manage speed on a larger facility like that. And I think it'd be a good conversation, but we don't have the data right now.
Yeah, and it's managing speed for capacity, not just for obviously safety. And then I have all these little notes I wrote as you were talking. So if you're getting rid of the curve, so Avalon being widened, that goes right into the city park, that T right there. But how is that section going to be different in terms of, especially for ped bike safety? Because now you're almost in a central business district. Do you look at any urban type cross sections, bulb outs at those streets that intersect with Avalon, you're in a whole different environment than a high-speed corridor. How is that segment looked at differently? Does that make sense? It's weird because it's a traffic study versus a corridor plan where you would look at those land use relationships. So
Yeah, I think we did a little bit more of a high level and
Mhm.
working with the city of Kuna. We do have that one more urban section between K and Orchard that does have the attached sidewalk.
okay.
And then it transitions to the more rural area with the 10-foot multi-use path. We didn't look at bulb outs or anything. We were mostly trying to stay within like the right-of-way footprint within
Yeah.
reason.
Okay. And then so many things. The crash data. You had 518 that were intersection related. Were those also? This is where I should know it, but I need to ask because I forget. Does that include crashes where you have like a driveway approach to the main Highway 69, or is it just the intersections with the other public roads?
It's just the intersections with the public roads. Yeah.
Because it seems that that is a telling thing that we could do better with design.
Yeah, a lot of the crashes at the intersections are rear end crashes. That was the highest at the major mile intersections.
And then people going too fast because why not? I've been on that road many times. Oh, I think that's all subject. I'm getting hungry. So, and is there a website? And I'd like to get a copy of this a PDF of your presentation too. And is there a project website for this study?
Yeah.
Is it on the itdprojects.org or whatever? Okay.
There's project website, but we also have the the presentation.
Oh, okay. Oh,
We
then
already
we-
sent that in, so
Oh,
somewhere
okay.
in ACHC, one or more employees have a copy of it.
Okay, appreciate that. And I'll be willing, there was a study, you brought up Meridian and looking at the, I call it a model study
Yeah.
as well. It's just adding segments and seeing how they perform.
Nodes and segments.
I think that's basically an update to one that was done, I want to say probably 25. There was one done that, part of that came out of it along with just the counters along the interstate is that only about 5% of the traffic would actually use those new segments because they're actually delivering things to existing places along the main I-84 trunk there. So I'll be curious to see.
Jason Brinkman brought that
If
up in the
that-
Boise Dev
yeah.
article, so if
Oh,
you
he
see
did,
that,
yeah,
you'll
he
see.
mentioned that at the Compass meeting. And I'll just say, I still have it out there. I've watched the Meridian reps on the Compass board. I think they all voted against the TIP amendment. They're highly concerned about that interchange being dealt with. And I know, is that going to be like an interchange study? And how is Federal Highways involved in approving an interchange study? I think there's some escalation of review for those.
Yeah,
It's not a normal project.
Anything that touches access to an interstate goes through an interchange modification report.
Okay.
Whereas like in Canyon County, they're looking at an additional interchange. So that's an IJR, interchange justification report. Looking at that one between milepost 29 and 33.
Yeah, is that done and has to get approved before obviously any other construction, or how's the process for those reports?
Yeah, it's
by Federal Highway, is that?
the IMR is, I mean, like on our 84 project, we have approval on the IMR, but it's contingent upon the environmental clearance being completed.
Yeah.
And we're just trying to get the last dot and cross the T on that one.
Yeah, you're just really concerned how we're gonna go from 7 lanes to the 5. Alrighty, thank you guys for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation, for all the information, obviously, like very long range and complex project, and sure we'll hear future details and have lots of coordination along the way. So thank you both.
Thanks.
All right, that's all for today. We'll see everybody next week. Thanks.